Got a spare 6 grand lying around? 51.4 megapixel worth of large sensor is calling my name. Around 1997, I shot my first full professional wedding, and the cameras that I used were Mamiya twin lens reflex medium format. That's film cameras, and that was my workhorse along with the backups. And in fact, I've got one of those backups right here. It's looking kind of forlorn. I thought I still had knocking about a C220. Sold the C330S Pro, whatever it was called, a long time ago. Of course, I wish I still had it. These medium format bad boys were my weapons of choice when I shot weddings, etc. in the late 90s. So let's just say I was raised on medium format. Yeah, it was slow compared to modern digital photography, but it was solid, it was reliable, and the image quality from the medium format negatives was frankly amazing, and it stood the test of time, at least until I surrendered to the digital world and I traded gear in, and I got, I think, my Fuji S2 Pro, my first digital, and onwards. Here we are 21 years later with this bad boy from Fujifilm. So let's take a close-up look and see what the crack is. The first thing that's of note is it's not as big as you might expect for a medium format. In fact, it's not much bigger than most of the best DSLRs that are out there on the market right now. And yeah, people are going to compare with full frame, but forget about that. It weighs around 920 grams with the detachable EVF in place, and features what I would definitely say is a top of the line magnesium alloy weather sealed body. The 51.4 megapixel sensor is medium format. Forget the arguments, it just is. It has that nice articulated screen that us X series users really enjoy. This one is a touchscreen. I haven't been able to get it to shoot, but you can select your autofocus with it. You can also swipe down to get a couple more functions, such as your RGB, your histograms. You can check out your levels to not just your horizon but also your vertical level. So that's a very sweet feature for landscape architectural photographers. That's a nice pro touch right there. Of course, you can use that screen to review your images, flicking through. I kind of like the joystick, if I'm honest, because I can move around it quickly, but I can just simply double tap and get right up to that screen. And well, we'll talk about the resolution a little bit later on. I think you already know how we're going to feel about that. I'm happy the lever's still there, and I do really enjoy that for moving around with the focus. I've got used to it quite a lot. With one little push I can select the autofocus point and change the size if I'm having difficulty getting the focus just where I want it. For example, if I'm shooting through blinds or branches, etc., or the point is just so small. But it's easy to flick around, easy to deal with that. Now if we look across to this side, dual card slots, nice and fast slots. You can have them working sequentially. You can have it so your movie files go to the one and your stills to the other. It's easily flexible. Flick to the other side and you'll spot there are DC power inputs. You've got your USB there, you've got your HDMI, and you've also got a remote right there. Interestingly, considering this isn't particularly great for video, is you've got a 3.5 mic jack and you've got a headphone port, which is really sweet. Considering the T2 was more tuned in for video and you need the grip to get the headphone port, that's a nice little feature which I think I'd expect for the money. Now if we pop open here, you'll notice that there's a proprietary battery, which just doing that I can't get out. So there's the nice fat battery there. You're getting around 400 shots off that. Now I was only sent one battery, so when that ran out, that was it. I was squeezing it and I had to just basically go home. But anyway, I was having such good fun with the camera. On the top, of course, you've got those beautiful Fuji dials, and you'll note that your play, your bin and your autofocus selectors have been moved across there. Now, of course, we've got that nice e-ink style screen which you can modify by going into the menu, and you can also press a little button here when it's on to illuminate it. So that's a nice little touch. We mentioned that you can detach the EVF, I quite enjoy leaving it on. It is pretty clear, it's pretty sweet. One review said it's like watching a TV through there. Refresh rate a little bit slower, but nah. I'm not going to bother going through the menus because, well, just a bit pointless, but I like that you can change your image sizes nice and simple. You've got a super fine RAW, a little bit different to before if I remember correctly. And you've got a whole bunch of other little bits and pieces, stuff you can translate from your X series bodies and other things that you might want to have a play with later on, such as rapid AF, and you can turn the touchscreen on and off there if you like. And you've just got pretty much business as usual when it comes to the menus there. Check out the movie modes, your very best 1080 29.97p, so 30p. You know, not amazing. I did have some beef with the app, which still only lets me record at 720, and I do like the app because I can see what on earth is going on.
I mean, it's first thing in the morning, so why am I even doing this? I suppose just some cameras just get you hooked, right? And I can hear it flicking around with the AF like crazy.
Not bad for video, but probably could have been better, but I don't think that's the point of this camera at all. Flash sync speed is only 1/125th. That could be a bugbear for some people, especially as this could be a sweet camera for use in the studio for some high-end work. We could talk for days about the spec, and yeah, you can read about that elsewhere and everywhere, but I want to get out, put it through its paces with the original trio of lenses that Fujifilm in the UK have kindly loaned to me just for a couple of weeks, and let you know what I personally think about this. Then listen to what you guys and girls think. Remember, there's no prejudice, and yeah, I've got history with medium format, so you know, I think I can have a say, right? Anyway, let's check out how I get on dodging the British weather. I'm really trying to avoid showing you 100% crops as every single review and video and article about the GFX does, but let's be honest, probably like all of them, I was like a kid in a sweet shop or candy shop, whatever you want to call it, and when I started going through the files from this thing every night after shooting, well, it was pretty amazing. And zooming into 100, it was kind of wild. It really is all about that 51.4 megapixel CMOS sensor, and yeah, YouTube, it's never really going to show you the potential at all, but you know, we had to have fun, we had to throw up some samples, and if you really need to get your hands on raw files, they're out there on the internet, you can check it out, but you can be confident. And yeah, we just threw up untouched JPEGs. This thing, unless you're going to be shooting documentary style stuff, fast-paced stuff, it's probably all about the raw files. And yeah, you've got the Fuji magic with those JPEGs, but the potential is just incredible. And it's likely that this sensor really does beg you to just slow it down, get it right. That's not to say it's unforgiving, it's not at all. I just think that this thing is a precision instrument which also lets you have some great fun and get some cracking images in JPEG if you really need to. And you know, Fujifilm have really proved themselves with the JPEGs, especially with the T bodies and the Pro body. Well, all of them with the X-Trans sensor. Either way, even with the JPEG images, you can still rescue an otherwise completely dead image. So imagine the potential with RAW. Well, it's just fantastic. That's what you're paying for. The dynamic range is really that good, and shooting at high ISO is also not a problem at all. The lenses that he used were a little bit slower than I tend to use these days, and yeah, going up to high ISO just wasn't an issue at all. Remember, this is medium format, bigger pixels and a bigger sensor. You really do get what you pay for. Some people moan it's not an X-Trans sensor, that it's a Bayer sensor, but you know, you really do get a top quality cracking sensor. Forget about the what ifs and what could have been. This just does it. I don't think it's the coolest, most attractive camera body on the market. Yeah, Fuji could have gone with something maybe more retro, maybe even sleeker, who knows. But it is solid, it's well built, and it handles excellently. Even carrying it for long periods of time in the hand like this wasn't as tiresome as you might expect. And in fact, it's only a tiny bit bigger than most top-end full-frame Canons and Nikons out there. That EVF is superb, and you can get a tiltable adapter thing to go on there so that you can look down and whatever angle you need with that EVF. And of course you've got the touchscreen, which is beautiful. Still haven't worked out how to get it to shoot. Not sure if you need a firmware update to do that or what, but otherwise it's sweet. It works well, and yeah, typical Fuji, what you see is what you get, and it translates beautifully on this screen. In true internet fashion, people will want to compare this to other cameras such as Canon's 50 megapixel offerings, but the nearest competitor, let's say, is the Hasselblad X1D50C, I think it's called. And that's a camera that I need to use a lot more, but for now the GFX, it offers more features, making it more capable across more fields of photography, except if you only want to concentrate on portrait photography using flash at different sync speed. The GFX fails on that, but you can still do that kind of photography with no problem at all if you know what you're doing. But the Hasselblad does allow you to sync a lot easier at different flash sync speeds. Contrast detection, autofocus speed is definitely not one for the tech fiends, and I also had some issues with the face detection, but if you know what you're doing you can switch that off or you can work around it. That's not a problem. Now, as you're only getting 3 frames per second, this isn't one for the sports shooters, and if you're looking at moving subjects, fast moving subjects, also you're going to struggle a little bit. Might not be the camera for you. I'd say that video is effectively an afterthought with this camera too. It's not that it doesn't produce decent quality video, but it's very limited. I mean, you've got them ports for the mic and the headphone jack built right in there, so you'd think, oh, this could be good. Then you look at the modes, and even though it only goes to 1080p, you've got a bit of variation up to that, but it's just decent, it's just okay. But if you know what you're doing and you want to get a few shots while you're out and about with the camera, not a problem, but not a dedicated video camera, and that's okay. It's probably a little bit too much at the moment to get going on with that medium format sensor battling with the processor, and yeah, that's okay, right? Now that you can get lens adapters for this, you can also have a play with your vintage lenses, and if you've got some high-end vintage stuff, that might be pretty cool. Maybe if you're a charity shop digger, it'd just be a bit of extra fun. Probably not the same, you know, market as this is aimed for, but if you've got them, why not have a play, see what they do on that huge sensor. Naturally, we want to know about battery life, and I thought it performed very well. About 400 shots with proper use. I'm not into turning everything off and seeing what I can squeeze out of it, just in proper use, but it's mirrorless, so get spares, you know, simple as that. You can also use DC power, and that's very handy too. One thing that was a little bit annoying was I couldn't charge it via USB, so after a long day's shoot I couldn't just plug it in via USB to the computer, transfer the files over. If the battery was dead, I had to charge it up or plug in to DC power. Not cool, as I have got quite accustomed to using that USB port on my T2, my T20, etc., and just plugging straight in, not necessarily to charge, but just to keep it alive while I'm transferring files. But also sometimes I just leave it plugged in to the MacBook, and yeah, very handy. Not sure why this doesn't have it, and I did some good Googling, and yeah, if anyone's got an answer, let us know below. At £6 then, the price shouldn't put you off if you're in the market for this level of camera. Of course, it's not for everybody, but for a camera with this level of flexibility combined with that amazing resolution power, the price is very competitive. Yes, it's not for everybody and it's not for shooting everything, but if you need to produce large prints for high-end clients, for example, and you still want a camera that's ready for most areas of photography, then this could well be it. There you go. Make sure you subscribe because we've got a lot of cool videos ready to release, including 3 lens reviews for the lenses that we use for the test, the 32 to 64 to 63 and the 120. Let's see which one turns out in the end to be my favorite. Stay subscribed, hit the notification bell thingamajig, and yeah, that's it.